If you grew up in the 90s just like me, you will remember how cool Nokia was. Back then, all the cool kids in my school were using this phone, which is the Nokia 5110. Yes, it was the first hype phone. They created a new trend by allowing people to actually purchase different casings for their Nokia phones. That led to many trends, and one of the main factors why Nokia was the king of phones back in the day. But nowadays, besides some very niche market types phones, nobody actually uses Nokia phones anymore. But at the same time, do you know that Nokia is still a really large company? It's another good pivoting story from one of the largest companies in the world, something that many of us, as a small business owner and entrepreneurs, can actually learn from. So that is a topic on this episode of Risky Business Coffee Talk. Back in the 90s, Nokia launched one of the coolest phones in the world, which is the Nokia 5110. It was deemed to be indestructible. If you look through any second-hand listings, you may be able to find one in well-working condition. I wasn't one of the lucky ones who happens to own Nokia 51110, but at the same time, I did own a couple of Nokia phones in the past, including the Matrix Banana phone, and upon its successes, Nokia releases multiple cutting-edge phones, including the Nokia Engage. In my opinion, phones back then are super interesting. There are a lot of different designs targeted at a different niche market. It's totally different from nowadays market of smartphones, whereby everything pretty much just looks like a small screen. They also launched a couple of business-oriented phones. I remember really well that my mom had the first Nokia communicator. It pretty much looks like a small laptop, and it's ridiculously large as a phone. But back then the pitch was to actually use it as a phone comes laptop on the go. Some of the Nokia phones becoming collector's items, and I know some tech friends who actually collect Nokia phones from years to years. When I researched the topic for this video, I was actually really keen to purchase that beautiful gold Nokia phones. It used to be super expensive item. It cost about $2,000, which is unheard of for a phone back in the day. In 2008, Nokia hits its peak value at $240 billion, and Nokia was one of the largest companies in the world, together with Microsoft and likes. Sadly, during the smartphone eras, Nokia didn't manage to catch up with Apple and Android phones. They did actually launch a couple of Android-powered phones, but sadly didn't get as much of market shares like the other players in the industry. But at the same time, Nokia at this point of time still has a really large presence, albeit not in the consumer phones market. They actually pivoted to telecommunications infrastructures and still have about $24 billion valuations, which is actually still a really large company. And they are currently one of the largest telecommunications infrastructure provider in the world. As a business owner, I always believe that it's important for us to understand when we need to pivot. I personally have pivoted my business once. I run a multimedia company. Back then, we were actually doing a lot of projects related to events. Of course, we all know what happened during the pandemic. So I did manage to pivot into a full-fledged multimedia company, and we actually grew about 3 times after that pivoting. So fellow business owners and aspiring entrepreneurs out there, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Hello, my name is Rizky. I'm an Indonesian-born multimedia producer and tech startup founder based in Singapore. As a business owner who has been running a business for close to a decade, I always think that there are a lot of business lessons that we can learn from the businesses around the world. So I decided to create this series in hope that I can learn from it myself, and at the same time, some of you guys, fellow business owners or aspiring entrepreneurs, can actually learn from the series. I run a multimedia company providing creative services for corporate companies, and I'm currently starting a tech startup dealing with legacy planning and parenting. If you want to know more about me and talk about business, I would love to have a coffee with you, and you can actually connect with me on later.